I'll admit that the first time I saw an e-reader, I thought it was a waste of money. It's a single-use device with a black and white screen like a calculator, which I guess is also a single-use device. And it costs a couple $100, and all you do on it is read books. Seems like a waste, right? We have tablets, that's probably a better device for it, and it has other functions as well, right? It took me having my own to understand why it's such a superior choice if you're talking about reading, like actual straight-up books. With the iPad, its multiple features is actually what prevents me from using it as a dedicated reader because I keep getting distracted by notifications and social media. So yeah, I had to own up to my own ignorance. E-readers are dope. I guess, hadn't actually tried one, and I hadn't seen how comfortable a reading experience it is. Being able to make the font bigger if I want to read without my glasses, being able to read at night with the lights off without bothering my girlfriend, for example, right? There's lots of reasons why people like these things. But when I saw that the hardcore users were advocating for the use of like stands for their e-readers, I thought, you know, even for a heavy user, that seems like a little much, right? Like maybe if you have disabilities, that makes sense, but anybody can hold the thing, like this thing. It's lighter than an actual book, right? What gives? But then when you start to read a lot, and I mean like hours a day, you encounter certain moments when you want to read, but holding the book is really uncomfortable for an extended period of time, that is. For example, when you're eating, right? I don't want to be holding my book while I'm eating, and I do a lot of my reading when I'm eating or when I'm about to go to bed. That's the other time when holding a book in a certain way is a little uncomfortable. I found myself constantly trying to prop this thing up against the pillow, and what made matters worse is that, and I'm not sure if this is just a me problem, but I can't read if I'm lying down and the book is making right angles with the bed. By that I mean if it's like on a 90-degree angle against my mattress, I can't read it for some reason. It makes me dyslexic. I don't know how to explain it. There's probably a name for it. If I have it parallel with the mattress, I also can't read the text. I have to have it just right, almost at a 45-degree angle. And it's hard balancing the book like that. And then when I had to interact with the screen to turn the page, sometimes it would fall out of balance. It was annoying, right? I was like, okay, I get why people like these stands for their e-readers, for their Kindles, for their Kobos. But then the next thing was the page turners I started seeing all over social media. And then I thought, all right, look, I'll give you that. The e-reader is pretty cool, and the stand, very useful. Not just for the e-reader, but I found lots of other opportunities to use it with my iPads or with my phone, right? When I'm using it as a camera, for example. But I thought the page turners were a little much, right? I'm like, come on, you can't move your arm. Again, for somebody with disabilities, perhaps, this is more relevant, but I don't need that, right? And then I started reading more and more, and then I found myself in situations where, for example, moving around a lot would bother my girlfriend who was sleeping next to me, or I found that perfectly comfortable position under the blankets. You know those situations where the AC is hitting just right, but you also want to bundle up, so you're like super comfy under the blankets, and now you have to move to turn the page off. And then, you know, it might seem like a nothing issue, right? But when you start reading for hours on end, it bothers you, right? Like you don't want to move from a comfortable position. And that's when I realized I needed to upgrade to this thing right here. This is a page turner. It's a random one. From what I understand, these things are all like white label, like very simple devices. So this isn't so much a review of this device right here, the Adzerd. I thought it was Adzero at first, but that's a D. Weird font. This isn't so much of a review of the Adzerd, but more of like, this is what reading with a page turner is like. They're probably all the same. So you usually have three pieces if you count the charging case. You have this little thing here, which is the actual page turner. This will go on your device, and yes, it works with both Kindle and Kobo. Like this, right? You might have seen this before. If you're reading, like if you're watching this video, I'm pretty sure this isn't the first time you're seeing this, right? So yeah, this is what it looks like. Then you get to the second part, which is this little case. It's like Bluetooth earbuds, right? So it is a ring that you wear on your finger like so with 3 buttons. There's a middle button to sync it to the page turner, then a forward and a backward button, although they activate the same action on this. It's also Bluetooth. It can be used with iOS. I thought that was going to be better than it actually ended up being. More on that later. So that's how it works. You turn the device on, and by pressing on the button here on the side, on the page turner itself, and then on the middle button here, there it is. So they pair, and that's all you do. You hit this button, and then the page turns like so. Is it working? Wait a second. I didn't turn it on. So once you turn both on and they pair, that's all you have to do. You hit the button, and then you get a page turn. Simple enough, right? I start to think that maybe these devices should come with a, a little ring like this. This can't be too expensive to manufacture, right? Like I would love if this was a built-in feature that I don't need, a little thing like this. Plus, if they started doing that, both forward and backward button would be native features. So yeah, you wouldn't have to, for example, buy a secondary device here to put on the other side to go back a page, right? Like I said, I think 99% of human beings see something like this as stupid, right? Like the thing I usually hear is like, you people are turning into the guys from Wall-E, the fat guys on the chairs with the screens right on their face. And to that I say, a little bit. I'll give you that. It does kind of look like that. But it's about comfort, right? Like if you read for hours on end, like I prefer reading, and I know this is probably the most presumptuous thing about me. Like I'm such a hipster about this, and it's not because I'm trying to say I'm so smart, because I'm not. God knows I'm not. But I do prefer to read rather than watch like a show or something. This is probably why you will likely never see me reviewing like a TV show or something like that. It's not really my thing. I love to read way more. It reminds me of when I was a kid, before the internet, before social media, before, having every single retro game in my pocket at all times. I read a lot. All the time. It would be impossible for me to have, for example, a meal or a road trip without a book in hand. So this is awesome. If you're reading a lot, if you get into that groove of like, you read for 2-3 hours, that's usually what I do to wind down. Before going to bed, I go to bed, I have my book on the little stand at the perfect at the perfect 45-degree angle. I take off my glasses, I increase the font size so it's a lot more comfortable. I turn on dark mode so the background becomes black and the font turns white, which is a lot easier on the eyes. Lower the brightness, find that perfectly comfortable position under the blankets, and then just turn pages without moving my hand. If I want to move my hand, is because now it's more comfortable to have it like this. Now I want to have it kind of like, between my legs sometimes. Like you move around, like trying to tuck yourself into a more comfortable position. When you find that position, and then you can just read, just like get the information from the book without moving in an uncomfortable way, it's awesome. Like, and again, I fully understand that this only makes sense if you're a heavy reader. But then again, if you're not a heavy reader, I would imagine this video wouldn't appeal to you. So now, this thing works with iOS, and I was really excited because I'm also a hardcore comic book reader, and the same problems apply. Finding the perfect spot, right? Like the perfect angle, and turning the pages. I use Panels now, which is, in my opinion, the superior comic book reading app. I've used every single one you can imagine. I bought the first iPad based entirely on the idea that somebody would develop a comic book app. So I bought it before that even existed, knowing that that would be the thing that I love doing on that device the most, and I wasn't wrong. Panels has an interesting feature which allows you to vertically scroll the comic book endlessly, right? Which, in my opinion, provides a better reading flow than turning an entire page and getting all of that information, visual and plot-wise, right, past you. If you're curious about like a character that is showing up now, but you're like, wait, was he in the previous page? Like, was he hiding in the background? Was he walking towards the scene and I didn't see it? So going back and forth like that disrupts the flow of reading. In my opinion, just endlessly scrolling is so much better. It flows far better. But the problem is this thing, it doesn't work natively with iOS. It connects with iOS and interacts with it natively, but it leverages the assistive touch feature, and I never used that feature. So I'm sure there's got to be a way to set this up that makes reading more comfortable. But the problem I find, it defeats the purpose of this Panels feature I mentioned, right? Like scrolling endlessly slowly. What it does is it just scrolls a whole page. So I'm back in the same situation, right? So for reading comic books on Panels specifically, this hasn't been helpful, right? But it's all the same. It's not the worst thing in the world, because ultimately I wouldn't want to be constantly like unpairing this from the little page turning device to pair with iOS, then pair it back with this thing, then pair back with iOS. I hate doing that with anything, like with Bluetooth. Like my Bluetooth mouse, the one I got, is the one that allows me to pair with 3 different devices, so I don't have to do this, right? So this is where it lives. This is where I use it the most, and I'm loving it. For like a quick reading session, you're not going to need something like this, right? But if you're like me, and if you're reading for like an hour or 2 hours straight, this is the most comfortable reading experience I've ever had in my entire life. I get it. Once again, something about reading books in a digital format seemed stupid to me at first, and now I have to admit that I was the stupid one. This thing is pretty fun. I'll leave links in the description if you'd like to get something like this. I'll try to find the exact one I bought, but I imagine that the experience is identical no matter which one you buy. All right? So anyway, that's my review of the e-reader page turning, whatever you call this doohickey here. While e-reading content hasn't exactly done gangbusters in my channel in the past, the last couple of videos did pretty well, so maybe this is something you guys enjoy hearing me talk about. So I might bring more e-reader centric content in the future. If you have page turning devices, feel free to share your experiences as well. And that's all the time I have for today. I'm Izzy and I'm done.